we are doing an interview with my very own beautiful mother, Michelle Starks. She has lots of experience with raising a child and was gone off to college, gotten a degree. And I just wanted her to come on here because we have a lot of talks about scholarships, and we talk about what the experience was like for me when I was going through school. And I always tell people, even though I have the knowledge as a student, even though I went through the process myself, my kids are young. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, for those of you who may not know. And so I don't know what it's like to send a kid off to college. So I was like, well, who else would be better than my mom to come on and talk about the experience that she had with me, and all of the things that we learned, the tools and the resources and the knowledge that we gained when I was going through school. For those of you who may not know me, I was able to graduate with over $50,000 in grants and scholarships. Glory be to God. So I graduated completely debt-free from college. Not only that, I was able to get refund checks directly back into my bank account. And so, like I said, I figured my mom would be a great person just to come on and talk about what that was like from a parent perspective. So I'm going to shut up. I'm not going to have a whole lot to say today. You all hear me talk all the time, probably sick of listening to me, but I'm just going to ask some questions. And then, of course, like I said, if you all have any questions throughout the evening, I'll be moderating the comments and we will get your questions answered. If you just have anything that you want answered, if you have any follow-up questions, please put them in the chat and we will make sure to get to those. All right. So stick with us to the end. We got some great things coming for you, and let's go ahead and dive in. All right. So, Mom, please introduce yourself for those who may not know you.
Well, I am Michelle Starks. I am a wife and a mother. First and foremost, though, I'm a child of God. And so I have to throw that in there because that's a big part of our journey. And then, of course, I am the just happy grandmother of those two wonderful little people that you just mentioned. But that's who I am, wife, mother, child of God, grandmother, all those things. Those are some of the most important roles that I feel like I play.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on here. So we're just going to go ahead and dive into the good stuff, the things people have been waiting for. So first, let's go back. I know it's been a while. I know I graduated from high school in 2013.
Right.
10 years. That's crazy. But 10 years ago, and even before that, tell me how you felt when I was starting my college and scholarship journey. How did you think we were going to pay for college?
Well, I tell you, I think first and foremost, we started thinking about college when you were young, maybe when you were 8th or 9th grade. We started letting you know then, your father and I, that our goal for you was not necessarily to send you off to a college campus. And so since we knew that wasn't our goal, then some of our financial responsibility wasn't as heavy to start with. And that decision with the college campus, at least on our end, came from a variety of reasons. But so we felt like if that was something you wanted to do, then that's something that you would either have to figure out how to pay for, or you would need to get scholarships. But that started us off kind of at a lower level of financial responsibility than what some of the other folks are that you might be dealing with. But we just started kind of planting those seeds when you were younger, just to let you know that our goal for you was to be able to start on a more local level, not having to worry about the expenses and all the other responsibilities that come with dorm life. So that was kind of the starting point for us.
And so let me go back. So I know that was the starting point, just kind of, like you said, not even really having those expectations of me going out and going and living on campus. And so when you talk about planting seeds, I like that term. Can you talk about that a little bit more? So I know some parents may be watching who have younger kids. And so if their goal is to help their kids graduate debt-free, what kind of seeds do you think that they should be planting?
Well, what we knew was that, like I said, for a variety of reasons, we didn't think that it was a good idea for you to start out outside of the home so young. Maybe at some point we thought you might want to translate into that dorm life, but for us, we just kind of start to let you know that if that's what you want to do, that's fine, but that's something that you would need to be working towards. And so when a child is in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and you just kind of start just dropping those ideas, it was a seed that got planted, I think, in you, Brianna. And so along with that, also the fact that we knew that we weren't going to be going out and getting loans. And so as a kid, I think knowing that, it probably caused you to set your sights on something that you felt like would be attainable within those parameters. So I think what may happen to some people is that the sky is the limit, and they start looking at all these different schools, whether it's out-of-state schools, and it may not even matter to them what the tuition is, or they might not even investigate the tuition because, in their minds, it's like the sky is the limit. I talked to my guidance counselor and she said, I can go here, here, and here. But I think as a parent, when you start setting some of those expectations when the child is young, then they know the sky is the limit if I do the work and I get the scholarships. But if I don't get the scholarships, then I have to work within some kind of realistic, parameters. They may not know what that means, but they may know that if I haven't done all the work, then I'm not just going to be able to choose anything that I want to choose.
I love that. And I think that's so true. That's one thing that I talk about on my scholarship workshop is just before the students are just applying to every single school out there, and the parents are, helping the kids fill out applications to everywhere, really sitting down and having those conversations with your kid. Because what I see happen so many times, I've seen it happen to so many families that I've talked to over the years. The kid gets accepted into their dream college, or they get accepted into a lot of colleges that they just fall in love with. But then once the tuition bill hits, or that estimated financial statement hits of what they'll actually have to pay, the students get so devastated and heartbroken because they can't go to the school, because some parents just say they're not going to take out these large amounts of loans. And so that's one thing I say, before you even put in the college applications, really sitting down and sifting through the realistic colleges before you get your heart set on something, and then you have to get it broken later. So that's a great point.
Okay, good.
So, kind of talking about, I know I'm the oldest, so how did it feel sending or preparing to send me off to school? I know the scholarship and the college process was very new to us. I know we're kind of starting from ground zero. So I know we have a lot of stressed out parents, overwhelmed parents who are just, it's like this big looming thing they have no idea how to even start at. So did you feel any of that when I was, when I said I wanted to go and get a degree? How did you kind of feel?
I felt absolutely overwhelmed and intimidated. I had no idea where to start. I did not go to college. So the result of that is I don't have a college diploma. So it was a totally unfamiliar animal for me. So, but God is just so good, because we just started easing into it just a little bit at a time. There were some classes that you were taking that even as a homeschooler, you had a class in particular that dealt with college scholarships. And then there were other opportunities through CLD, the Center for Leadership and Development here in Indianapolis, where they were offering information just about colleges, college fairs, where I just started, you and I both, we just started to kind of dip our toes in the water and just started showing up for different sessions that would come around that would just teach us a little bit. So I just learned a little bit here and a little bit there, and you learned a little bit here and a little bit there. And I think we were able to start putting pieces together to figure out what it is that we're even talking about here. What kind of information are they going to need in a transcript? What kind of test scores are you going to have? What kind of money are you going to have? And so it was just lots of little conversations with lots of different people, here a little, there a little, where it all combined to just as we got closer and closer. And by the time you got to your senior year and to the end of your senior year, we knew more than we knew when you were in 7th or 8th grade, just because when we had opportunities to learn something, we just asked questions, and the more questions that you ask by anybody who seems to know something about the journey, then the more you can learn. But I was overwhelmed. I was intimidated. I had no knowledge of how the process worked. and just one step at a time, one question at a time. But it was all about doing it together. So if you had an opportunity, if you were going to a college fair, I was going to the college fair. I didn't expect you to go in as a young person and ask all the questions that I would ask as somebody who's 25 years older than you. I knew that wouldn't happen. Your perspective, the things that would draw your attention would be so different. You might be caught up in what clubs they might have to offer, or what is campus life like even just walking the campus, and the restaurants and the this and the that. My questions were totally different. So I didn't leave those things in your hands simply because you're a kid. And I know that your focus would be really different from mine. So I think that's what really was critical, is not looking at it as your job and your responsibility, but looking at it more so as my job. And then you kind of came along, I won't say for kicks, but you came along, but me knowing that you had a whole different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that 100%. I wasn't, I was aware of all of the things that were going on, but I didn't understand the reality of it, or all of the different pieces of college, and I didn't even know what to ask, or I didn't really care what to ask when I was in high school. It became more serious to me once I got into college, but in high school, like, my focus was somewhere completely different. But you said a lot of great things. I'm just over here just writing down notes to ask you some follow-up questions, or to make some follow-up comments. But I love what you said about just the little pieces. And I heard you say you started when I was in middle school. So just whatever class, whatever workshop, whatever seminar, whatever fair we could kind of get our hands on, we just started learning. And then that way, by the time I got to my senior year, we weren't rushing and scramming and trying to collect all this information, because we had just been building up on it over time. So I love that. Yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome. And then I love the fact, or the point you brought out about doing it together. So sometimes families will ask me, as they're going through my program, should I have my kid do this, or should I be doing this? Should I give you my kid's email, or should I give you my email? Should my kid show up to the sessions, or should we do it together? And I always say 100% of the time, teamwork makes the dream work. You're going to have so much more success if you do it together. If you make the kid be invested in the process as well, because it's their education. And especially with them going off to college, they're going to have to learn how to be more responsible, and how to really start taking independence and taking a part in their own journey and their own dreams. So I love that. I'm just kind of echoing what you said, but I think that's awesome.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I love it. So what was the biggest key to our scholarship success?
Well, I feel like the biggest key was keeping at it, and doing it together. Honestly, as the adult in the relationship, as the experienced adult in the relationship, I knew what was at stake, financially, first and foremost. And that even though you may have had certain dreams of going to certain schools, and had a certain path maybe in your mind of starting at a state school, let's just say, starting at a state school and finishing at a state school, I had to look at the reality of, how are we going to pay for that? And how is that going to affect your future? How's that going to affect my future? So I feel like working together was really important, because I knew what was at stake in a way that you didn't. So every part of the process, when it came to the scholarships in particular, I didn't expect you to understand what was at stake. And so I think it would have been easy to let that process just kind of fall apart and fall through the cracks if I had left it up to you, because it's easy for kids to lose interest in things that they don't understand the value of. So that's why, again, I think I feel like I'm saying the same thing I said with the last question, but I feel like it just goes back to partnership, to working together. And actually, it's not even a 50-50 partnership. I held the greater weight. I held the greater percentage because I had the greater knowledge. So I don't know if that helps, but.
Oh, that does help. And I'm going to kind of skip a few questions.
Okay.
Well, I'll get back to them, but you kind of touched on one of the questions I was going to ask earlier. So how did you get me to then buy into the process? Because I know, especially starting out, I wasn't really super invested in it. But by the time I got into college, then I was applying for scholarships on my own. And I got married my junior year of college. So then the financial weight was like, fully on me. I wasn't living at home or anymore or anything. So what do you think was that transition from it being your responsibility and you the heavier partner in our partnership to then me taking the reins and really getting invested myself? I mean,
Well,
I could probably give my answer, but from your perspective, what do you think?
yeah,
How
I think,
did
but
you get places?
because you're talking about like once you actually started college, is that
Right.
what you're referring
Mhm.
to now?
Yeah.
I feel like what caused you to really kind of buy in is after you got your first scholarship. Once you got your first scholarship and you realize, oh, like there's actually free money, like somebody's going to give me free money,
Yeah.
then that's when I feel like you spread your wings in college to continue to pursue the free money. And by then, you have the tools. It was like by you learning those tools in high school, because if I can back up a little bit, so in high school, I just made that part of your responsibility as a student. You have your math responsibilities, English, and whatever other courses that you're taking. And then as a parent, I was aware of how you were doing in those classes, even when you started taking classes on your own outside of our homeschooling situation. I was always had an awareness of how you were doing, and I feel like most parents do. And so it's the same thing with scholarships. That was part of your responsibility. So I think we might have set it to 2 scholarships a week, if I remember correctly, that it was your job. I think maybe starting the junior year
It was
to apply for, yeah, so to apply for 2 scholarships a week. And by you doing that, by that being like a non-negotiable, because as parents, we have certain non-negotiables. It's like if you're going to live here, then whatever we decide, whether it's you're going to clean your room, you're going to do the dishes, you're going to pay house money, you're going to do whatever it is that you do, that became one of the non-negotiables. It's like if you're my kid and if you're going to live here and this is what you think you want to go to school, then I need you to fill out 2 scholarships a week. And so some of them were really easy. Some of them didn't even involve major essays or anything like that. But by you having that responsibility, you develop the skills. And then you start to realize, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought it was. I mean, basically, if I can come up with these 2 or 3 essays, I can use these same essays and just keep tweaking them, twisting them. So that way you could just knock that responsibility out and go on with your life. I think for you in high school, it wasn't so much about, oh, Lord, please let me get this scholarship. I think it was like, my mom's making me do this, so let me go ahead and get this out of the way. So if she asks me about it, it's done. So that way over the weekend, I can go do my stuff. It was more about that. So by the time you got to college, it was like breathing. I mean, it was no big deal. So you actually had gotten a scholarship. So you realized, oh, this is for real. Like somebody will actually give me free money. And you had built the skills. So it wasn't even hard. I mean, you had all that in the database. So then you're comfortable asking questions in the scholarship office at IU or IUPUI rather, or Ivy Tech. You're comfortable asking the questions because you've been filling out scholarships forever. So then it's like, oh, well, they'll give you this, or they might give me this one, or, oh, they might give me that one. So then you're just whipping them out. At that point, it's just not even a hard thing. So hopefully that answered that question.
Absolutely. Like I'm just absorbing it all because there's so many directions I can take, but I would agree 100%. I really feel like I did buy in after I did receive that first scholarship. So I remember getting that one February of my senior year, and then I got one on my high school graduation day. And then, like you said, by then I had so much experience under my belt that I did feel so much more comfortable going and applying for scholarships on my own, because by the time I was in college, that whole responsibility of me having to apply for scholarships, that all stopped. But I kept doing it. I started my freshman year of college and I kept on applying for scholarships through my senior year of college because I did have that experience. So for parents of seniors, I will say it's not too late. I know you might be watching this and feel like, oh my gosh, like it's too late. Like I'm just click off the video. Don't click off the video. It's not too late at all. But if you do have younger students, I was just telling a parent earlier today, for the parents of sophomores and juniors, I think it is so important just to make that part of the weekly routine or the weekly habit. So by senior year, you're not rushing and scrambling and trying to pack it all in. Now, I will give a lot of hope for seniors right now. There is still time. There's absolutely still time to win money for school. I always give this example. I had a family who I was working with who started with me in March from ground zero, like knew nothing about scholarships. And by the time she got to August or September when she started, she had freshman year completely covered plus some. So it's not too late at all. You might just have to work a little bit harder, really dig in a little bit deeper and get more focused, spend more time applying for scholarships throughout the day. Maybe instead of applying for 2 a day, you're applying for, 2 a week rather, you're applying for 3, 4, 5 a week. So maybe you'll have to do a little bit of catching up, but it's not too late at all. So I love that. And keep asking your questions. I see y'all in the comments. I see you all sharing, tagging. I love it. It's so much engagement right now. So believe me, I'm going to get to all of your questions. So absolutely put your questions in the chat. Reggie, I see your question. I see all the tags and everything. So thank you. Nikki, I see your comments. So we'll absolutely get to those. I'm going to keep on asking questions, but stay tuned. We're going to get your questions answered.
Great.
All right. So next question. Were you about to say something? Did I cut you
No.
off? Okay. All right, cool. So next question. So many ways we could go, but what should new parents expect as they go through the college and scholarship process with their child? You kind of covered that, but kind of more on a technical level, like what are some of the things that you remember learning that, or you remember some knowledge you remember getting that they should also just get prepared for?
I really don't remember. Brianna, you have to help me. I don't remember the technical part of it really being that difficult. I mean, just like all of us, we fill out applications our whole lives. I mean, whether it's a job application or whatever the application is for, you start to realize after you fill out so many that there's a pattern to most applications. And so I think if you can read and if your kid can read, then you can fill out the application. I think what I remember more so is realizing that there are only so many type of essay questions that are probably going to be asked. And so once you got comfortable answering those essay questions, I mean, what I remember is more so in the beginning feeling like, we had to write these masterpiece essays. But when I say we, you did the writing and I did the editing. And both of us are just doing the best we know how, but neither one of us were, we had any experience with it. We didn't have any wins, on our side. And so just treating every essay as some new masterpiece that you have to create. And then after you fill out so many of these applications, you start to realize, oh, well, there's a repetitiveness to the questions. And so that masterpiece, that we created in the beginning, oh, well, let's just go and pull that baby back out and kind of dust it off and tweak it a little bit and then just resubmit it. So unless there's something that I'm not remembering, I don't remember there being a whole lot of like technical stuff that we had to learn. We just had to get in the swing of things, almost like, if it's been 20 years since you've written a resume, you have to kind of get back in the swing of things and say, okay, so what are they looking for now? It's like, I got to go, do I even have a 20-year-old resume? If I've been on my job for 20 years, I don't even know if I have the old one, and it would be so outdated. So then you're online and you're comparing and you're asking questions and you're doing all this stuff. But once you update it, once you go into all the trouble of updating it, as you apply for job after job after job, you realize I don't have to create a new resume for every job that I apply for. I might need to switch things around a little bit. I think it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I was going to say, that's one thing that I talk about in my workshops all the time. That's a big component of one of my scholarship workshops that I hold, is talking about the 3 most popular essay topics. I'm not going to give them out now. Come on the workshop and then you can find out what they are. But I will say, exactly to your point, there are a lot of essay topics that you can just reuse and recycle over and over again. I always say scholarship application panels are not super creative usually. Even when I gave out my scholarship last year, I kind of pulled from the general top 3 essay questions that they always ask, because most people aren't just sitting around thinking about all these intricate, stories that they want to hear from the applicant. They usually just pick one of the few general ones. And so you're right. Once I got those down, I used the same essay my senior year of college that I was using my senior year of high school. Of course, I updated it and made it better and kind of like kept tweaking it, but the general body of the essay stayed the same. So yeah, I agree 100%. And that kind of answers your question too, Reggie. You asked, were there certain essay prompts that you preferred? So I'll give you one of the 3. So the one essay prompt, the number one most popular one you'll see all the time, is about your career goals and your career experiences, or your career goals, your why of why you picked that career, and then what you plan to do with your degree after you graduate. So that's a huge one. Like, that is the number one essay question you'll see all the time. So once you really get a good solid draft of that one, then it'll be really easy to keep reusing it and recycling it. And then I see this question too when it comes to essay writing. Some people will ask, like, what are your favorite essay topics, or what essays should I write about? That's the question I get a lot. What essays should I write? But usually they don't give you a choice of what to write about. Sometimes you'll see where they have a few different prompts you can pick from, but the short answer to that question is just write about what they're asking. If they're asking for you to break down this specific thing, don't give them what you want to tell them. Don't give them what you think they want to hear, and then go off in some tangent that has nothing to do with the prompt. Just stick with the prompt. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of answer that. Again, keep asking your questions, keep popping them in. I love it. You guys are so engaged with the sharing and the liking, and I love it. I think people are really tuning into what we're saying tonight. That's great. So let's see. Okay, so this is a good one. So 2 of the biggest challenges I see parents face surround time management and organization. I hear that all the time. Either we don't have enough time to apply for scholarships, or how do I get all of my application materials together and just stay on track? So my question is, how did we combat time management, and how did we stay organized? So how do we keep track of my upcoming scholarships and my essays and my transcript and my letters of recommendation? But we'll start with the time management piece. So what would you say to parents who have super busy kids, or maybe very busy themselves with jobs and outside responsibilities and sports, and kids have homework and part-time jobs and personal life? So what would you say to the time management piece? Yeah, I'll say my part 2 of that after the answer part 1.
I think we make time for what we prioritize. I think we make time for what's important. And so, I mean, you were like all other kids. You had a ton of stuff going on. I mean, you were working, you had all your church stuff going on, you had all your personal stuff going on, you had school, you had whatever it is that you had back then. I just remember you being busy. I remember you not being home a whole lot. But I think we make time for what's important. So that's where I feel like we as the parent have to set this expectation with our kid that if you want to go to school, this is what has to be done, because that's how it's going to get paid for. And it's up to the kid then to determine where they want to plant their seeds. Because if you don't plant the seeds, you're not going to be able to harvest anything. And I think that's really up to us to set that, expectation is not really the word. But it's our job to let the kids know that you're the one that wants to go to school. You're the one that wants to be an XYZ, once you graduate from school. And so I'm not going to mortgage my house to do that, So if that's what you want to do, then we're going to have to work together to make sure you've got the time to complete 2 scholarship applications. Because if I remember correctly, it doesn't take that long.
Especially once you have all your materials together and you can just knock them out. That, like, once you have everything together, the materials and the essays, it really doesn't take long to just kind of slap everything together, check it, and send it off.
Right. So let's just say if it was, and you can help me out with this, Brianna, but maybe if it was at an hour seems like a long time, especially after you get through the first several of them. An hour seems like a long time per application, but if I can work for an hour and get $1,000, that was an hour well spent. Yeah. You know, if I can work for an hour and get a $1,500, I'm not even talking about the big dogs. If I can get a $1,500 scholarship, I don't know, there's not many of us that are making $1,000 an hour or $1,500 an hour, you know? So to me, that's time well spent. And then more than likely it didn't actually take an hour. But that's where we as the parents have to set that requirement for our kid that, yeah, you're busy and I'm busy and everybody's busy. But if the priority is that you want to go to school, then we have to make sure these seeds get planted every week, because if you don't plant anything, nothing's going to come up. And I think that's what I mean by planting the seeds when you were younger. And you can do it during the senior year also. You know, it's like if you don't plant anything, nothing's coming up, because if in the back of their mind they're thinking, oh, you got it. You know, if they're in the back of their mind, they're thinking, you know, at the end of the day, I know I'm going to school. She knows I'm going to school. So I don't know why we tripping and why we got to play this game. If that's what they're thinking, you know, then they're probably not going to have time to fill out any scholarship applications, and they're not going to be organized, because, I mean, how much effort does it take to organize, you know, some pieces of paper, you know what I mean? Or in our case now, I mean, it's all digital, you know, so to create these digital files or file folders or whatever it is. So I feel like, I mean, our kids are typically really smart. They know how to organize all the things that they're interested in, and they know how to get done all the things that they're interested in doing. So if you have a kid that wants to drive, they know how to pester you to death to get in that 50 hours so that they can go take their driver's test, or they know how to do what they want to do. If they want to go on a trip with a friend, if they want to, they know how to organize, and they know how to get things done, and they're just on it when it's something that they want to do. And so I think we just know as parents, they have no concept of what it's like to be overwhelmed by debt. Yeah. But unfortunately, many of us do, you know, and so since that's what I want to keep my kids from, then I'm going to have to leave the show, because they don't get it, and they won't get it until it's too late.
I love that, just being the parent. I mean, that's what it boils down to. I did a similar interview with another parent named Oshia Boyd. So if you haven't watched that interview, everybody who's watching, just go back to our YouTube channel. It's on the YouTube channel, but she's just, you were really echoing a lot of what she was saying. It's just, you know, I'm the parent, you're the student. If this is what you want to do, I'll support you. I'll love you. I'll help you. I'll be there for you. But ultimately, it's your responsibility, especially because, again, when you're going off to college, this is your education. And really even more so for the ones who are going out of state. Like, you're not with your parent every day anymore. And so we're going to have to start learning how to really make you kind of spread your wings and fly. You know, you're still at the coop right now, but right. One day you're going to have to fly and do this on your own. So I love that. I think that's awesome. Yeah. People love it. People love what you're saying. To that point, I feel like it's parents on here. Like, yes, come on now. So part two of that question. So the organization piece. So I know it was 10 years ago, and I do remember having that physical binder. Do you remember how we kept track of like all of my application material? So letters of recommendation, resume, essays, all of that. Like I said, I vaguely remember having a binder, but I didn't know if you remember better than I did.
I just remember a binder and file folders. I think we had one of those filing boxes.
Box. Yeah.
Like a portable thing that we probably got at a garage sale or somewhere, or Office Depot or somewhere, but just one of those portable things that probably held 50 file folders or something. Not that we needed them all, but that way you could take it up to your room or just do whatever with it. But it was pretty much, I remember this being as simple as that, as having a binder and having file folders. So maybe there was a file folder for every school or every essay. I don't really remember what the system was, but it was pretty straightforward. Just somewhere to put all the paper, so that it's not scattered.
Then, like you said, now we live in such a digital age where the families and the students that I work with, I always say, like, have those paper application materials as a backup, but really Google Drive is going to be your best friend. So if you don't have a Google Drive account, I highly recommend making one for a couple of reasons. So one, you can get on the same account with your kid. So that's why I love Google Drive. So you can share files, share documents, share folders with each other. So whether you're at work and the kids at school, or you're at home and the kids off doing whatever, you can literally be looking at documents and looking at files at the same time, wherever you go. And then it's great because then you can have digital folders that you can organize everything in, you can update them. And then when you're submitting your electronic applications, you can just pull from those digital folders, download your resume, and then upload it to the application. So for those of you watching, definitely create a Google Drive account, and then add your child on there too, so you can have everything just right there at your fingertips. So
Brianna, so if I could add to that also, I think it's really important when this is new and it's uncomfortable and it's foreign, to sit down at the table and do it together. And so obviously, while the kid's sitting there, your child, your student is sitting there, or they're typing their essay, obviously you're not going to be sitting there over their shoulder, watching them type. But on the other hand, I mean, even if you're there paying bills or doing whatever it is you do, even if you're on your phone, whatever you're doing, but I think just to have that presence there, that they're not doing this by themselves. And so that way they can ask questions as they're venting their frustration. You can encourage them and tell them how they can do it. When you create the Google Drive, if your student does this, because a lot of times they're more savvy at these things than we are, but if they're creating it, it's something that you guys are doing together, so that you can get in and have access and watch them and focus them and don't let them play dumb, and what you're doing. It's like, you can do this. It's like, we're going to get through this. Once you get through this, then you can go do your whatever. But I think if you make it a team effort where we are physically doing this together, not just me telling you to do it, so that way, like I said, when they do get stuck or frustrated, or they just want to bail out on it, that you're there with them, and you're there to be that encouraging presence. Sometimes it's just having that presence. And then once they are kind of get on a roll and they get more comfortable, then I think you can kind of leave them to their own devices and expect them to be effective. But in the beginning, they're just not going to be that effective, even if they are 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. I mean, we all need a helping hand sometimes. Sometimes we all need somebody to encourage us and to walk down the path with us. Even though as parents, we may not know the way any more than they know the way, but at least we're just that, two is better than one. Yeah. I think it boils down to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you made me think of something one of my clients shared with me that she did with her daughter as they were going through this process. They had what's called scholarship Saturdays, and I loved it because they would get up on Saturdays because the mom was working during the week, the daughter's at school during the week, and she was another very involved student. And so they had scholarship Saturdays. They would get up, they would go to Starbucks. This was their routine. Nice. Just sit down and just buckle down and get their scholarships knocked out. So even if she didn't have 20, 30 minutes a day to work on scholarships, on Saturday, when they did have some time, because it was so important to them, even though they could be relaxing, sleeping, watching TV, going out, whatever, they took it so seriously that they had their dedicated Saturdays every Saturday for as long as she was working with me, at least, and they're still working with me. But I know that was just what they did because it was that important to them. So I love that. I love the teamwork aspect. And then Adriana, I love it. This little tip for everybody, we're a little shout out, I guess. So I'm doing an interview with Adriana on here too. So she just commented her son also got just a wonderful amount of scholarships. So she said, I did a spreadsheet with my son and file folders on the computer. So yeah, just echoing what we said. I love it. So be on the lookout for that interview. She's next on the calendar. So super excited to do that interview with her. Awesome. So going to student loans, okay, the dreaded two words, this is like a cuss word basically to me in my field. But so student loans. So I know student loans were not even a discussion for us. And I know you kind of alluded to that earlier. So how did you make that decision that we were not even going to research student loans, look into student loans, none of that? And then how did you stick with that decision, even with when it seemed like the easy option? Because, I always say student loans they're the easy way out. I mean, it doesn't really take anything at all to go fill out the application. You basically get instantly approved. And then you can go to school and just not have to think about money for some years. So what gave you that grit to really stick with the conviction that we're not taking out loans, we're not even going to talk about loans, even when you didn't feel like doing scholarships probably with me, every week for 2 years?
I never look at debt as the easy way out because I've been in debt. I've been like when I was college age and money was more so like monopoly money. Like you said, it's so easy to get loans. It's so easy to, I'm going to show my age here. It's so easy to go in Best Buy and, I can get a VCR for 18 months, same as cash. And, all this stuff that just adds up and adds up and adds up until eventually you find yourself in tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt and you don't know what you bought, so I know what that's like to have to dig out of that. And so I never wanted that for me again or for my children. So that's why student loans for me would never be considered an easy option, because I look at it from the aspect of you have to pay that back penny by dollar by dollar by dollar until you eventually zero that thing out, so why would we do that when we don't have to? And so I think, again, it went back to managing expectations. If you felt like, Brianna, you wanted to go to a $25,000 a year school and you didn't have any scholarship money with which to do that, those expectations had kind of been managed all along to let you know that, we can do what we can pay for. We can do what we can afford, even if it were semester by semester. That was an example that I had seen. Like I said earlier, I didn't go to college, but, I had siblings that did. And I remember my sister underneath me. I remember her and my parents grinding it out every semester, so she's working and they're contributing and semester by semester, it's like I watched them grind it out, and she ended up graduating and not having any debt. And so to me, that was just what you did. That was what I saw. And like I said, with my own experiences with that, I didn't get it when I was college age, that money is not monopoly money, that it's actually money you have to earn. And then after you pay for everything, then you tell yourself all these things. Oh, I'll pay that off by the end of the month. Oh, yeah, I'll buy this thing and then I'll pay it off before the bill even comes. And instead of doing that, you go and get something else and make the bill even higher. So I think because I had already lived that life, and I know how desperately hard it is to pay off debt when you're also paying for life, that I just didn't, I knew I didn't want that for you, but I also knew that I wasn't going to make that choice when there are just too many options. Because at the end of the day, I think when it comes down to degrees, I get the fact that we want the brand name degrees, for lack of a better term. Just like, I like brand name stuff. I want the nice cars. I want the nice clothes. I want the nice purses. I want all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you don't have to do anything. But for me, I have to do what's workable. So if that means we start in Indianapolis, you might have people watching from all over, but here you might start at community college. Now, obviously, you're not going to graduate from community college because you can't get a 4-year degree there. But so many of those credits, if not all of those credits, are transferable to the next college, that if that's what we can afford, then that's what we're going to do. Because I understand the reality of once you graduate, if you're $100,000 in debt, you are so far behind the 8 ball. How are you going to drag yourself up out of that on top of paying for life? Absolutely. So going back to the easy way out, to me, that's slavery. And so I don't like being a slave. I was a slave. I don't want to be a slave anymore. I won't be a slave anymore.
Yeah.
been set free. My
Yeah.
shackles are broken. Can't go back.
Yeah. And that's so funny. I was gonna ask you about your own like debt journey, but I didn't want to get in your business, put your business out there. So I was like, well, let me not ask that. So I'm glad you brought it up, just from your own experience of having debt. I'm so glad that you felt so strongly about it that you didn't want to put that on me, or even allow me to think
Back
about
either,
yeah,
us. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's
Especially because this is something you wanted to do. I made my choices about what I wanted to do. You wanted to go to school. You want to be a teacher. That was fabulous. I was so excited. That was just such a wonderful goal. But it's your goal. So my job was to support you, but not to do it for you. My job was to give you the tools and to give you the support and to help you in any way possible to achieve your financial goals. If it'd be my job to come up with the money to make sure that you're going to get through this semester. If things were really tight, it's like, I would have sacrificed or done whatever needed to be done to help you get through it. But just to blank check you and just be like, the sky is the limit. The sky is not the limit. I don't have the sky, so.
And that's what I always tell people. That's why I did end up becoming so focused on scholarships, and I really took the process seriously. And that's why I'm in the position now to have so much knowledge to help other people, because I had to go through the process and I had to really take ownership of my education. So I love that. Yes. Don't take out loans, y'all. Don't do it. That, like she said, there's so many other options out there. There are so many scholarships that you can apply for. There are so many scholarships you can apply for. Okay, I had to say that twice because the opportunities are out there. And so we just have to really find them and tap into them. And that's where we can come in and we can really guide and help you. I'm going to read a comment. So Michelle Tolliver said, I did college Sundays with my son. I kept his essays and access to his email. I was able to send in things when they came up during the day. He was so busy at school and wouldn't get home until after 9 p.m. Very successful for us. So again, going back to that teamwork, I love all the other parents chiming in and, giving their amens on that. That's awesome. And so you covered so many of these questions. We're going to wrap up with these last few. So what advice would you give to parents who feel like giving up during this process, especially when scholarship offers aren't instantly flowing in? So I'll preface that, or I'll add this to the question rather. So I remember, like you said, starting the scholarship process in junior year and applying, didn't hear back anything, didn't get a single offer junior year. Then senior year came around. It was August, September, October, November, December, January. Didn't get my first offer until February of senior year. So, I mean, August was around the corner. And so what advice, again, would you give to parents who are kind of just freaking out because the offers haven't started coming in yet?
I would say don't put all your eggs in the scholarship basket. If you get the scholarships, in glory, hallelujah. If the money comes in, that's fantastic. I don't think we should ever stop applying, but I think just like with most things in life, you have to have a backup plan. You just want to sit down with your child and have some conversations. Not doom and gloom conversations, but plan A, plan B, plan C, plan C1, plan C2. It's like, what are we going to do if you don't get the scholarship to go to that particular school? Are you willing to go into debt and to we all make our choices. It's just one of those things where if you're inflexible about your goals, then you may end up going down some paths that you regret. So you might want to think about how can we build in some flexibility, because maybe the scholarships will come in, but they might not come in. They might come in here a little, there a little. They might not come in at all, or they might come in during freshman year, or whatever the case may be. So then, what are we going to do? And I think your child's behavior during this whole process is going to be an indicator of how far you want to go as a parent. Because if you have these scholarship requirements, let's just go back to the 2 a week.
Yeah.
And you can't get your child to submit you can't get them to submit to a month, much less 2 a week. You can't get them to buy into this whole process at all. That to me is an indicator of what I might see once you get to college, because if I can't get you if it's not important enough to you to do this, then what makes me think that it's going to be important enough to you to go to class and to do all the homework and to get the grades and to do all the things that makes my loan worth me paying it back for. If you're not faithful over the little things, how do I think you're going to be faithful over the big things? College is a big thing. I mean, when you send that young person off and they've got to get themselves up in the morning and they've got to do all the things that we know they're going to have to do, and you can't even roll them out of bed to send out a scholarship application, once a month. We just have to, I think, be realistic within ourselves as parents and say, do I really want to going back to your original question, put all my hopes and all my dreams on these scholarships? First of all, what is my child showing me? Are they showing me that they're going to do the things that it's going to take to actually get through 4 or 5 years of drudgery to get this degree? I think we got to be real with ourselves too. So it's kind of going off topic a little bit, but I think we just kind of have to be real with what have they shown me thus far. Overall, are they even ready? And if I have all these questions in my head, do I really want to make this commitment if the scholarships aren't coming through, to tie myself down to a whole lot of additional responsibility on top of the responsibility that I already have? Yeah. So do they need to wait 6 months? Do we need to have a couple of other schools that they could go to that might cost a little less? Do they need to wait a year? Do they need to work? Do they need to show me that they can save $500, $1,000, something towards their own, financial responsibilities? It's like, just to sit down and take a little bit of inventory, like, what are they putting in, before I dive in and make some commitments that I might regret down the road.
Absolutely. I love that. I think I made a video not too long ago about not putting all your eggs in one basket. And when I made that video, I was talking about colleges, because sometimes students would just apply to one college and then that's it. And then if they get in, they get in. If they don't, they don't. But that's what that video was in reference to. But I think the same thing comes to scholarships. Now I'll say you can win scholarships. Like, if you put in that consistent work, if you have the right tools, the right resources, like we were able to get, and now that I teach and I give to the families who I work with and the students who I work with, you can absolutely graduate debt free. It just might not be in your timeline. So I think having that backup plan, just in case you do get a late start, or maybe it takes your child a while to really get bought into the process, or maybe you're just, because a lot of families who start with me, they'll tell me what their scholarship process is, like what kinds of scholarships they're applying for, what kind of essays they're writing, and they're just not the right thing. So maybe you started off bad and then, you started working with SheEdits, and then, now you're on track, but, you don't have a lot of time. So the backup plan is great. I love it. I've talked to parents who are like, we're just going to wait a semester and we're going to just sit down and think it through, figure it out. And then you can enroll next semester. And it's okay not to have to go with the crowd. It's okay to have your own educational journey. Like, it's okay if all your friends are starting school in August and you're starting school in January or next August. Like, it does not matter. It really doesn't. In the long run, the long term, it doesn't, even in the short term, it doesn't matter, And so just figuring out what works for you, what works for your family, what's realistic, and then just taking those expectations off of yourself. I was talking to a family, and so it was me, the mom, and then one of the counselors at his dream school, and they just couldn't afford the school. It was just so expensive. And I remember the person the employee at his dream school told them, this is what I recommend that you do. Start at a community college, just work your way there, keep applying for scholarships as you're in the community college, and then transfer those credits to us. They were like, we would rather you come in later and then be able to get a degree from us than have to start at our school and then have to drop out because, just you can't stay. And so I love that. And that was coming from like the school employee, and she gave that recommendation. So like I said, I love the idea of, maybe starting 6 months, a year down the road, nothing wrong with that. Starting at community college, saving some money, getting some credits cheaper, transferring over. It's nothing wrong with that. And I will say too, during the workshop for everybody watching, that's part 2 of the workshop. So part 1, I give and I break down my 3-step scholarship strategy. And then part 2 is all about 4 other ways to graduate debt-free. So I always say scholarships is number 1, but there are 4 other things you can be doing in the meantime to either earn money or save money for college. So if you hop on that workshop, it's learn.sheeditsllc.com, then I'll break it all the way down for you. So I know we're at our time. And so you've just pretty much answered everything. I mean, so much good conversation. And so is there anything else you would like to add? And then I will check to see if we have any more questions. I see a lot of comments, but I want to make sure we're getting questions answered too. But while I'm looking, is there anything else you would like to add? Any encouragement, any last minute advice?
Mm-hmm. I think ultimately, especially for those of us that believe in the power of God and his love for us, ultimately, our lives are in his hands and our children's lives are in his hands. And I really feel like as long as we seek him and put him first, he's going to lead us and guide us, through all of these uncomfortable, transitional areas of life. We want what's best for our children. We've been investing in them all these years, and we want to see them transition into adulthood successfully. And so we feel so much weight on our shoulders to make it happen. But I tell you, I think if we've been faithful as parents to do what we can by them and to incorporate God in the process, that we have to leave the result really up to him, and just trust that ultimately it's going to be okay, and that's I didn't always feel that so much in the process. In the process, it's really easy to get weighed down and overwhelmed by the weight of a life in your hands. It's so easy to feel that weight, but I think I had to remember it's like just to cast that care and that burden on God. Do what I can, do all that I know to do, and encourage my student to do what they can do and to incentivize them, and sometimes put a foot in their back or whatever it takes to incentivize the student to do what they're supposed to do, but to not take so much responsibility on ourselves like it's all on me. Yeah. Because if we take it all on us, then God will let us take it all on us. And then sometimes we can end up weighted down with responsibility that we didn't have to have. So I give God the glory. I give God the glory for our success, for your success, Brianna. I'm just so thankful just to see what has happened. I mean, it has exceeded my wildest dreams. And I'm just so grateful for God's goodness to us.
Yes, amen to all of that. I agree 100%. And I always say, anybody who follows me or who watches my videos, I talk to me about some Jesus. So but that's the truth. I mean, he's my foundation. And so, just building your foundation on God, you can't go wrong at all. So thank you for saying that. I love that. I don't see any more questions. I got some comments. You got an amen. So Chris Frazier said, amen. I love it. You're welcome, Chris. She also said, thank you. If you don't have any more questions right now, I see we still have people watching, but if you don't have any more questions, you can always reach out to me at any time. You can reach out at info at SheEditsLLC.com. That's probably the best way to get a response from us. I get a lot of DMs and a lot of messages, and I try to respond to all of them, but it might be a little bit more delayed. But email, you should definitely get a quicker response if you shoot us an email. We would love to have you on our next workshop. So the next one is April 20th. And so you have a little less than a month to register. register. Seats are very limited, but we would love to have you on that workshop. During that time, like I said, I'll be breaking down my 3-step scholarship strategy. So I've taken the whole scholarship process and distilled it down into 3 easy, very straightforward, very, very comprehensible steps. And then we'll take a break for Q&A. So I love the Q&A break because a lot of people have so many questions and things about that first section, and just to make sure that they are good to go. And then we'll dive into part 2, which is using the other 4 strategies to graduate debt free. We'll do another Q&A, and it's just an awesome time. So that's live via Zoom. So unlike this, where you see me, but I don't see you, I don't know who's watching, it's actually a Zoom meeting. So you'll be able to, turn on your camera, unmute, ask me questions live in real time. And it's just amazing. So just go to learn.sheeditsllc.com, learn.sheeditsllc.com. And then I'll also put the link in the comments. But thank you again, Mom, for coming on here. This has been so wonderful. I know people got such great value. We had people watching the whole time. And so I love it. I really, really appreciate it. Dika, you said, my son is in his first year and I need help getting scholarships. Absolutely. Sign up for the workshop. That is going to be the #1 place to start. Learn.sheeditsllc.com. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody else's comments before we hop off of here and say farewell and good night. I think that's it. Let me check YouTube one more time. All right, I think we're good, but thank you again. I really, really appreciate it. This has been such a wonderful interview. Thank you for keeping it real. Thank you for giving your insight, your advice. Again, like I said, I have the little ones, as you well know. So I don't know how to speak from a parent's perspective, sending somebody off to college. So I think it was great. And I kind of got like the behind the scenes look of what your mindset was like, back when I was in high school. So I think that's awesome. But thank you again, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a great evening. Again, just reach out to us. We would love to help you graduate debt free. Let me make sure we're all good to go on that end. All right, perfect. Well, I'm going to stop the stream right now. You all have a blessed night in Jesus' name.